Hare Krishna everyone. Welcome to Once Upon a Time, Dashavatara series, Dasha Avatara. 10 different incarnations of the Supreme Lord. We've been discussing one after the other. In fact, we have already completed the first 6 incarnations. Matsyavatara, the fish incarnation, Kurmavatara, the tortoise incarnation, Varaha Avatara, the boar incarnation, Narasimha Avatara, the half man, half lion incarnation, Vamana, the dwarf incarnation, and then Parashurama, the one who went around the globe 21 different times and killed, massacred the unrighteous Kshatriyas. So now moving on to the 7th incarnation, and might I say perhaps this particular incarnation, the 7th incarnation, is the most popular of all the 10 incarnations, and that is the incarnation of Keshava, Lord Krishna, as Lord Shri Ramachandra. Ramachandra Bhagavan ki Jai. If you want to understand a very elaborate description of Lord Ramachandra, I welcome you to listen or watch our Ramayana series. There we really go deep into it. But in this particular episode, we will touch very briefly about the life and glories of Lord Sri Ram. Not only is Lord Rama popular, but so is Ramayana. In fact, many a times we think that Ramayana, Mahabharata, these Puranas are particular to Hindus, quote unquote Hindus. Many a times I have explained that the word Hindu itself is a misnomer. And we think that this particular text, Mahakavya, Ramayana, belongs to Indians. But actually, if we see, we have plenty of evidence and proof to show that across the world, Ramayana is quite prevalent. If you go to Thailand, for many centuries, the different kings who were ruling the region of Thailand were just called Rama 1, Rama 2, Rama 3, Rama 4. So they would just continue like that, one after another. So where is Rama coming from? From Lord Rama, from Ramayana. And there are certain kicks and moves which are called after various characters from Ramayana. It's called Hanuman hold, Angad kick, Wali's punch. So clearly the characters' names are coming from Ramayana. And I was just reading somewhere that one of our Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya Acharya from South India, he happened to visit Ethiopia, and he was talking, he had an audience with the king of Ethiopia, and he started describing the glories of Ramayana, describing the character, the exemplary nature of Lord Sri Ram. And this monarch of Ethiopia stopped this Vaishnava Acharya and said, hold on. This story I already know. This story belongs to us. And this Vaishnava Acharya said, what do you mean it belongs to you? And maybe perhaps you don't know the entire story. Let me continue. And as he was going, the monarch again interrupted him and said, I beg your forgiveness, but we already know, and this is our story. And then the monarch of Ethiopia actually told this Vaishnava Acharya, he said, you know, we are Kushaites. Kushaites. That's what he said. Because Lord Rama, remember, he has 2 sons, Love and Kush. And after the time of Lord Rama, he happened to divide his entire kingdom, his empire, into 2, and one particular region, one half of it, he gave it to Kusha, and the other he gave to Lava. So this monarch of Ethiopia is saying that we are Kushaites. He's saying that he's coming in the lineage of Kusha. And even if we go to Mauritius, every single household in Mauritius, they will have a picture of Hanuman and Lord Sri Ram. How come in Mauritius, all the way there, that they happen to worship Hanuman and Lord Sri Ram? That is where Maricha went and fell. Maricha was one of the demons who came disguised as the golden deer, catching the attention of Mother Sita. This was all the strategic plan of Ravana to come and kidnap her. And even before that, actually, Maricha had another encounter, a pre-encounter with Lord Rama, when Lord Rama happened to kill Maricha's mother Thataka, the demoness, and she had two sons, Subahu and Maricha. Subahu was killed by Lord Ram, but Maricha did not get killed, but he was, because of the assault from Lord Rama, he went and fell all the way in Mauritius. In fact, because Maricha fell there and then his family grew there and then their lineage went there, so the whole place itself was called Mauritius. So like this, if we just go to different areas, you go to Japan, you go to Cambodia, in fact you go to South America and Central America, Ramayana is very prevalent. In fact, Ravana's relatives, very close relatives, lived in Brazil, South America and Central America. One of his brothers happened to be in Brazil, and in fact that is where Ravana, the demon Ravana, he was actually thinking of building the golden staircase to heaven right from that region, because they had a lot of gold there. In fact, even to make Sri Lanka as Swarnalanka, lot of gold was imported from Brazil to Sri Lanka. So I'm just giving you a glimpse into, Ramayana is quite universal. Many people are aware, they may not know exactly like the version that we have, Valmiki Ramayana, but they have different versions. But the character of Rama, Sita, Hanuman, Lakshman, Bharat, Shatrughna, Ravana, very prevalent. So before diving into Lord Rama's glorious, exemplary character, let's talk a little bit about the villain. For this, we have to go back, and for those of you who are very regularly been watching our Once Upon a Time series, if you happen to already watch the Varaha Avatara and Narasimha Avatara, I have already described elaborately about how it was the gatekeepers in Vaikunta, Jaya and Vijaya, who were cursed by the four Kumaras, and Lord Narayana himself comes to their rescue, but the curse was already uttered and it had to come to fruition. And that Jaya and Vijaya in Satya Yuga, they came as who? I'm sure you know the answer. It's Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, you're right. And the second time around, this Jaya and Vijaya who came as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. In fact, if we see the order of the yugas, there is Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga and Kali Yuga, and we are right now in Kali Yuga. If you see Dwapara, Dwa comes from the word Dvi. Dvi means two. So actually, right after Satya Yuga, the second Yuga which was supposed to be there was Dwapara Yuga. Treta Yuga, Treta, it comes from three. Three means number three, right? Third. So Treta Yuga is supposed to be the third Yuga, but how come this mix-up happened? How come Treta Yuga is coming after Satya Yuga and Dwapara is coming after Treta? How come the third became the second and the second became the third? That is because this Ravana, Kumbhakarna were such, high caliber asuras. Lord Brahma thought, I need to hurry up. I can't wait until the third Yuga for these two, great demons to take birth, and we don't know what all havoc they are going to create in the world and how much of harassment is going to happen. So Lord Brahma thought, well, I'm going to trick it. Instead of Treta Yuga coming as third Yuga, I am going to prepone it and make Treta Yuga come right after Satya Yuga. So you can imagine the caliber of Ravana and Kumbhakarna, that Brahma had to swap the second and third Yugas. So the third Treta Yuga became second one after Satya Yuga, and Dwapara moved to third, where Krishna appeared. And not only that, we have seen like Hiranyakashipu was praying to Lord Brahma, and there are certain asuras who have prayed to, like Bhanasura and all that, they have prayed to Lord Shiva. So usually they either pray to Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, but Ravana was such an asura that he prayed to both Brahma and Shiva. So he was a great devotee of both Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and he had gotten boons from both of them. And because of these boons he got, he was, instead of being empowered by it and doing good in the universe, he actually became arrogant and proud, and he tortured the people even more. He went all the way to, higher planetary systems. He had defeated all these demigods. He had in fact made the demigods like the steps on whom he would climb up and ascend to his throne. Very, very powerful asura. While Hiranyaksha represents the anartha of greed, Hiranyakashipu is the embodiment of the anartha called pride, false pride, and Ravana is the embodiment of the anartha, lust, kama. Any woman, wherever he saw, he would just want to enjoy with them. Doesn't matter if they're married, unmarried, if they're already, they may belong to the demigods, they may be even related to him. Like for example, he went to higher planetary system and he fell in love with Ramba, and Ramba happened to be the wife of Manigriva, and Manigriva was the son of Kubera, and Kubera happened to be the stepbrother of Ravana. So in that sense, Ramba was actually the daughter-in-law of Ravana. And Ramba refused, but Ravana, is such a kamuka, he is such an embodiment of lust that even for the daughter-in-law he would. So you can imagine. And he was cursed for this. He went to the Himalayan regions. There was Vedavati, very great tapaswini, Mother Lakshmi's embodiment herself. And he went and grabbed her hair and wanted to enjoy with her, and then she cursed him. And she cursed, and in fact the same Vedavati comes as Mother Sita in the next Janma, and she becomes the cause of the death of Ravana. So in fact, he was cursed not only by, Ramba, not only by Vedavati, he was cursed by so many. He was cursed by Nandi, the Vahana of Lord Shiva. In the Himalayan regions again, when he was going there in his Pushpaka Vimana, which he stole, which he grabbed forcefully, I should not say steal, because he defeated Kubera, his stepbrother. And he was going on Pushpaka Vimana here, there, everywhere, like as though he is the Lord of all that he surveys. And before entering and having darshan of Lord Shiva, there was Nandi, and he had a tussle with Nandi also, and he made fun of Nandi, calling him like you're a monkey, or you look like a monkey or something like that. And he was cursed by Nandi also, saying that it is Vanarasena who will become the cause of your death. In fact, he went to great Muni, Ashtavakra Muni, and Ashtavakra Muni, great sages are known for their knowledge, for their wisdom, for their austerity, for their sacrifice. We should not judge them for their external appearance. But Ravana was so proud and arrogant that he made fun, he insulted, he humiliated Ashtavakra Muni. He said, "Oh, handsome, very nice, very nice." See how sarcastic. And he said, "You're already, 8 bends. I will kick you and make sure you get 9th bend also." See how arrogant he is. And Ashtavakra Muni, he cursed Ravana, saying that, you're acting like a monkey, so monkeys only will kill you. So like this, the Puranas say, Ramayana, it is said that Ravana had 28 different curses because of all such arrogant things that he, all such abominable, sinful things that he was committing, insulting others, trying to enjoy with others, grabbing somebody else's property, all kinds of things. So 28 curses Ravana had. And Ravana, when he was getting the boon from Lord Brahma in Gokarna, maybe some of you have gone to Gokarna, very nice place. It's a holy site of pilgrimage. If you haven't gone, you should go. It's very nice, beautiful place. So that is where Ravana and his other siblings, in fact, he had, they're all 5 children who were born to Vishwarava and his wife Kaikasi. Dashagriva, that is Dashamukha, Ravana, he has many, many different names. Dashagriva, Griva means neck. And Dashamukha, 10 heads he had, 10 faces. Ravana, what does the name Ravana mean? He who makes others cry by harassing them. Lanka means a place where people are wailing, people are crying, people are frustrated. Very unhappy people. And Dashamukha, what does Dashamukha mean? Dashamukha represent, it's the symbolic representation of 5 senses, 5 jnanendriyas and 5 karmendriyas. And they're all externally focused. So the senses are constantly looking for sense enjoyment, happiness. What can I eat? What can I see? What can I hear? Who can I associate with? What can I listen? What can I taste? All these different things. So as long as you know Dashamukha, the senses are not under our control and they're running like wild horses hither and thither, trying to enjoy independently for their own sense enjoyment, that is what will happen, what happened to Ravana. Absolutely no sense control, and they're constantly going to be crying and make other people cry also. It will become the cause of our destruction if we don't control our senses. So Dashamukha, and then he also had his brother Kumbhakarna. Kumbha means pot, Karna means ears. So he who had ears like pots. And Kumbhakarna also, he was so humongous, it is said in Ramayana that when he just stood, Ravana had a 24-story building, palace. Ravana would stand on the terrace and Kumbhakarna would be standing on the floor and they would speak eye to eye, face to face. You can imagine how big he was. So this Kumbhakarna, he also had a benediction from Brahma. Oh, let me tell you, Ravana, by the way. So when he was asking so many different boons from Brahma and Brahma was saying Tatastu, 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 he got so many boons. And Ravana considered humans to be so insignificant that he didn't even bother to get the benediction that I should not be killed by humans. He said I should not be killed by demigods, Gandharvas and all the other categories of humans, but he did not say I should not be killed by humans, because he thought humans anyway, I can take care of them. They are no threat to me, they are not a match for me. And it so happened that Lord Rama, who came in the form of a human, he ended up killing Ravana. And similar thing with the Vanara Sena also. Ravana had not included them, that he should not be killed by them. And it so happened that it's the Vanara Sena, including our great Bhakta Hanuman, that they ended up assisting Lord Rama and successfully defeated and killed Ravana and both Kumbhakarna also. So like this, Ravana had already gotten the boon from Brahma. Just before Kumbhakarna could also ask the boon from Brahma, all the demigods were petrified. They thought, my goodness, Ravana has already gotten all these boons and now Kumbhakarna is also going to get so boons. So they were intensely praying, and Mother Saraswati, what did she do? She went and sat on the tongue of Kumbhakarna, and as he was speaking, what he wanted to ask Lord Brahma was that he should not be killed by any devatas. So he was supposed to say Nirdevatvam, that no deva should kill him. But Mother Saraswati sat on his tongue and made Nirdevatvam to Nidravatvam. Means I should sleep and sleep and sleep. Because the demigods were praying and Mother Saraswati came to their assistance. So she tricked and changed what Kumbhakarna wanted to ask and what he ended up asking. Immediately before he could change his mind and take back what he said, Brahma said Tatastu, Tatastu, and he left. And that's how Kumbhakarna sleeps for 6 months and he is awake only for 1 day, and then again he sleeps for 6 months. And after that 6 months also, to wake him up is like a humongous Herculean task. They have to come with spears and poke him, and they bring big huge elephants and make the elephants walk on the body of Kumbhakarna. They have to bring all kinds of delicacies and make that smell go right into the nostrils of Kumbhakarna. They have to pour water and whatnot they have to do just to try and wake him up. I'm sure some of us can relate to this. Usually in the mornings, especially if we are supposed to wake up early, like in Brahma Muhurta time or something, for anybody who has to come and wake up, it's like waking up Kumbhakarna. So Dashagriva or Ravana, Dashamukha Ravana, then Kumbhakarna, also Shurpanaka, sister of Ravana, and then there is Karadushan, another Asura who got killed by Lord Rama. Because Shurpanaka, after she got her nose cut off, she went and complained to Karadushan, and Karadushan came with 14,000 soldiers, and Lord Rama killed all of them. And then Vibhishan. Vibhishan is an exception, although he was born in this Asuric family with Asuric siblings, but he was a great devotee of Lord Rama. And that is why when our Bhakta Hanuman, he leapt across the ocean and went to Lanka, and when he set fire for the entire Lanka, only one house he skipped, and that was the home of Vibhishan, because he was a devotee of Lord Ram, and Hanuman did not set fire to his home. And also Ashoka Vatika he spared because Mother Sita happened to be kept in a captivation there. So this is how powerful Ravana and Kumbhakarna were. So while this was the case in Lanka, ruled by Ravana, parallelly there was Chakravarti Dasharatha Maharaj. While Ravana is called Dashamukha, the king of Ayodhya is called Dasharatha. Who is Dasharatha? He who can, what should I say? He who can wield his chariot, Ratha, in 10 different directions. There are 10 directions. And he would be completely in control of them. So what do the 10 chariots symbolize? It's a symbolic representation of the 10 senses again. But here he could control the senses. The senses were inward. They were not external. They're not running around looking for sense enjoyment here and there. They are inward. Looking for spiritual self-realization, God realization. And because Dasharatha Maharaj was able to control his 10 senses, as a result, what happened? He was living in a city called Ayodhya. Yuddha means battle, war. Ayodhya means that place where there is no war, there is no battle. There are no battles. It's completely filled with peace. See what a contrast. Dashamukha, the 10 senses are not under control. So the result is Ravana, he who makes others weep, and he also ends up weeping in the end and having to be killed. But Dasharatha, who can control all his 10 senses, as a result, he is always peaceful. He is living in a city of Ayodhya. So if we also want to be happy and peaceful, we should learn the art of sense control by way of art of mind control. So Dasharatha, although he had everything, there was one missing piece in the puzzle, and that is because he is the emperor of the world, he was the Chakravarti, he wanted a heir apparent who could continue the lineage. And unfortunately, he did not have a son to carry on his lineage. So what did they do? There was a great qualified sage. So he was called, and then they performed this Putra Kameshti Yagna. This is the Karma Kanda section where there are authorized permissions given in our Vedic scriptures. Like if somebody wants a son, there is Putra Kameshti Yagna. Somebody wants some other thing, they can do some other Homa or Yagna. So there are different sacrifices, different homas, different austerities, tapasya, penances that can be performed in order to achieve something. So King Dasharatha, he performed this Putra Kameshti Yagna along with 4 beautiful, chaste, loyal, faithful wives, Mother Kausalya, Mother Sumitra, Mother Kaikeyi, sorry, not 4 wives, 3 wives. And then from that Yagna, Putra Kameshti Yagna, came a pot of sweet pudding, sweet rice, and that was distributed among the three queens, and then immediately in no time, at the apt time, the four beautiful, amazingly brilliant sons were born, not one but four. So Mother Kaushalya gave birth to Lord Rama, Kaikeyi gave birth to Bharata, and Sumitra gave birth to Lakshmana and Shatrughna. So what does Rama mean? Rama means he who gives pleasure to others. Ravana makes others cry and Rama makes others happy. Rama means an embodiment of pleasure. Lakshmana, he who is an embodiment of Lakshmi, fortune. Now we may say Lakshmana is an embodiment of fortune. What fortune did he have? He didn't end up being the king. He didn't own Ayodhya. What fortune did he have? He had the greatest of fortunes that anybody can aspire for, and that is personal service towards Lord Rama. So as long as we have the opportunity to render service to the Supreme Lord, that is our only true wealth actually. All the other so-called wealth we have, it doesn't matter that much. The true wealth, the treasure that anybody can possess is serving the Supreme Lord. And since Lakshmana, his life and soul was always rendering service to Ram, that is why he is Lakshmana, who has the wealth of service for Lord Rama. Bharata. What does Bharata mean? He who is Bharana, who is carrying. What is he carrying? He is carrying the heavy burden of misunderstanding. And what was that big misunderstanding? That his mother Kaikeyi, she heard to the envious maidservant Manthara, who put in this poison into the ears of Kaikeyi, and she reminded Kaikeyi, Kaikeyi, do you remember? You have these two boons from Dasharatha Maharaj once upon a time when you assisted him during the battle. Dasharath Maharaj was so powerful that he would go and even assist demigods in fighting against the demons. And in one such battle, when Dasharatha Maharaj was almost about to lose his life and lose the battle, it was Kaikeyi who was so, had this warrior qualities that she put her finger and held the chariot together so Dasharath Maharaj could valiantly fight and win that battle. And at that time, Dasharath Maharaj was so pleased with Kaikeyi that he had given her a boon, but she said, I will not ask for that boon now, I will ask when the time comes. And it is this evil Manthara who actually told Kaikeyi, why don't you take opportunity, make the best of that opportunity now, remind him. And what did Kaikeyi do? Just the night before Lord Rama was supposed to be coronated in Ayodhya as the heir, she used these benedictions inappropriately. She forced Dasharath Maharaj, saying that it is not Lord Rama who is going to be coronated, but it is her son Bharata who has to be coronated. And all this while, the innocent, the pure-hearted Bharata, who had absolutely not even an ounce of contamination in his heart, he happened to be at his grandfather's place, maternal grandfather's place. He was away with Shatrughna. He didn't know anything about this, but the time he could come back, his father Dasharatha had passed away. Rama, along with Lakshmana and Sita, had left Ayodhya and were exiled to the forest for 14 long years. And when Bharata came, everybody misunderstood, including Mother Kaushalya, including Vasishtha, including sage Bharadwaja, including Guha. Everybody doubted the intentions of Bharata. They thought this is all a master plan of Bharata. How nice, everything was done in his absence, and now he comes. And he is going to sit on the throne of Ayodhya, having exiled Lord Rama, who is our life and soul. Can you imagine? Such level of gross misunderstanding, and Bharata had to clarify himself, saying that no, I had nothing to do with this. So all through he had to carry Bharana, this weight, this heaviness of misunderstanding that everybody, tried to, everybody misunderstood that he was the cause of Lord Rama's exile, but he had absolutely no hand in it. Now coming to Shatrughna, what does Shatrughna mean? Shatru means enemies, Na means to annihilate them, to conquer them. So Shatrughna means he who has conquered the enemies. Not only the external enemies, but most importantly, he had conquered the internal enemies. And what are the internal enemies? The Arishadvargas. Kama, Krodha, Mada, Lobha, Moha, Matsarya. And Shatrughna had conquered these anarthas. And as a result of that, he got the jewel. And what is that jewel? That although Lakshmana rendered direct service to the Supreme Lord, even greater than that is to serve the servant of the Lord. So when Bharata was ruling Ayodhya for 14 years, by keeping the Padukas of Lord Rama on the throne, while Bharata was rendering service to Lord Rama by ruling over Ayodhya in the most dharmic way possible, what was Shatrughna doing? He was not directly serving Lord Rama, but he was serving Bharata, who was actually serving Rama. So to serve a devotee of the Lord, to serve a servant of the Lord, that is even more glorious than serving the Supreme Lord directly, and Shatrughna had this treasure. How amazing! So these four brothers, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna, in fact they were so close that when they were born, Lakshmana was crying, Shatrughna was crying. They are twin brothers, Lakshmana and Shatrughna, born to Sumitra. And she couldn't figure out, why are they crying so much? And then Vasishtha Muni, when he came and saw this, he instructed, why don't you carry Lakshmana and put him right next to Lord Rama in the same basket? And the moment she put Lakshmana in the same basket like where Lord Rama was right next to him, Lakshmana was smiling. He started giggling. And the moment Shatrughna was placed next to Bharata, even he started giggling. And that's how you always see Rama and Lakshmana always together, Bharata and Shatrughna always together. But of course, they're all four always in union. So going further from here, like I said, Ramayana is so long. In fact, in Srimad Bhagavatam, of the 12 cantos, in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, just in 2 chapters, Shukadeva Goswami very beautifully describes and finishes off Ramayana in 2 chapters. But if you want to relish it even more, of course here also it is total relishment, total nectar. But if you want even more, there are 24,000 shlokas in Ramayana composed by the great sage Valmiki. And it is said right in the beginning of Ramayanam that Valmiki is singing this nectar-like Ramayana. He is just like a cuckoo. But also if you go deeper, Valmiki is roaring like a lion. So what does this mean? Valmiki is singing it like a cuckoo and he is roaring like a lion. And how can be Ramayana both a roar and a sweet song? That is the beauty of Ramayana, dear viewers. At the surface level, it is so sweet, it's so entertaining, it's such an enthralling story. It touches your heart, it moves you, it makes you cry, it makes you smile, it inspires you, it teaches you so many lessons. Just as the story level itself, it's so sweet. Just like a song sweetly sung by a cuckoo. But the deeper you go, the deep philosophy, the heavy philosophy embedded within the story, that's like a roar of a lion that will for sure remove all the anarthas from one's heart. So you have to relish this. You can also read these 2 chapters from Canto 9 of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you can also relish the entire Ramayana, Valmiki Ramayana, because there are so many other variations of Ramayana as well. But first we should read the authentic Valmiki Ramayana, and then if you wish, if you have time, you can relish other versions also. So very beautiful Ramayana. I'm not going to have time to go deeper into it. And Lord Rama, we know he was the ideal son, and as the ideal son, it gets exemplified the moment when he got to know that he was being exiled. Although Dasharath Maharaj could not bring himself to do it, but because of the force from Kaikeyi, Lord Rama himself, Pitruvakya Paripalana, imagine. It's easy to do Pitruvakya Paripalana. If your father is telling, go to the grocery store and get these things, go to ATM and collect some money and come, study well, this, that Pitruvakya Paripalana is alright. But when your father, imagine, is saying, you have to leave just the night before, you were supposed to coronate it. And because of some evil woman's trick, envy, having been exiled to the forest for no fault of yours for 14 years, this is where it gets tested. And Lord Rama did not budge even for a moment. He said, I will go. With no hatred, with no envy, no kalmasha. He had nothing against Dasharath Maharaj. He didn't even have anything against Kaikeyi. So pure-hearted. Ideal son. Ideal king. Many people, even till date, they say, Rama Rajya. But even without understanding what actually the tenets of Rama Rajya are, they simply say we want Rama Rajya. But in fact, to know what Rama Rajya is, we need to study Ramayana. There are pages and pages, shlokas after shlokas, where Valmiki Muni Maharshi is describing the glories of Rama Rajya. So he's an ideal king and an ideal husband. But of course, many people may have a little bit of objections in calling Lord Rama as the ideal husband. But I have already answered this in one other video actually previously. The whole video was discussing about Lord Rama as the ideal son, ideal king, ideal husband, ideal father, ideal brother. So I will put the link for that video in the description. You can watch that, okay? So after watching that, I'm sure that you will be convinced that he is also the ideal husband. An ideal brother also. So any which way you see, Lord Rama, that is why he is called Maryada Purushottam. Purushottama, he is the best, Uttama of all the Purushas. Maryada Purushottam. What is Maryada Purushottam? He sets the standards that everybody looks up to, wants to emulate. And Parashurama was carrying the axe. This particular Rama, Lord Sri Ramachandra, who comes in the Surya Vamsha, he carries the bows and arrows. And the next incarnation that we will talk about very soon, Balarama. Balarama will be carrying a plow. These are the different weapons. So there are 3 different Ramas, in this Dashavatara. Parashurama, Lord Ramachandra and Balarama. And in which Kula did Lord Rama come? In Surya Vamsha, Raghukula, Ikshvaku Vamsha. In fact, it is said in chapter 4 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the very first shloka, Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanaham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravi. So Krishna said, O Arjuna, about 120 million years ago, the same Bhagavad Gita knowledge I spoke. To whom did Krishna speak? He said, Imam Vivasvate Yogam. I spoke to the sun god. And what is the name of the sun god? Vivaswan. And who did Vivaswan speak to? His son. And who is his son? Manu, Manave Praha, Manu. And Manu spoke to his son. Who is his son? Ikshvaku. And like this, from one king to another, this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was passed on. And in that same Surya Vamsha, our Lord Sri Ramachandra is also coming in the same lineage. Solar dynasty. So there is lunar dynasty and the solar dynasty. Chandra Vamsha and Surya Vamsha. So Lord Rama happens to come in the Surya Vamsha. So very, very beautiful. And in fact, there is another particular verse in Srimad Bhagavad Gita where Krishna again takes the name specifically of Lord Rama in 10th chapter, 31st shloka, where Krishna is describing how he is the best of everything. He says, of all the wielder of weapons, I am Rama, he says. That is how expert Lord Rama was in wielding the weapons, the bow and the arrow. Just one arrow. One word, one arrow, one wife. Exemplary Lord Sri Ramachandra. So I'll just read the verse for you. Pavanaha pavatamasmi Rama shastrabhritamaham Jashana makaraschasmi Srotasamasmi Jannavi. So the second line here, Ramaha shastrabhritamaham. Shastrabhritam, of all the wielders of weapons, I am Lord Rama. This is said by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And in Rama Raksha Stotram, where beautiful shloka, so we will chant that and then we will chant the Dashavatara Stotra just in a moment. Okay. So this is one of the shlokas from Rama Raksha Stotra. It is quite long actually, very beautiful. From that I am just chanting one particular shloka. Varjanam bhavabijanam arjanam sukha sampadam tarjanam yamadutanam Rama Rameti garjanam. So what is it? Varjanam bhavabijanam. If you simply take the name of Lord Rama, like in Hare Krishna mantra also, you're chanting the name of Rama. What does it do? Bharjanam bhavabijanam, the seeds of material existence, the cycle of birth and death, bharjanam, it will just fry it. After frying, it will not sprout. Arjanam sukha sampadam, by chanting the name of Lord Rama, what will happen? What will you get? What arjana you will get? Sukha sampadam, the treasure of true happiness. Tarjanam Yamadutanam. The Yamadutas will not even come close to you. Tarjanam, they'll run away seeing at you. And Rama Rameti Garjanam. When you do Garjana, when you roar, what should you roar? Rama Rameti. When you loudly chant the name of Rama, these three things will happen. Beautiful, isn't it? So as always, so we will end this particular episode of Dashavatara series where we are describing the glories of Lord Sri Ramachandra. So it comes in the 7th shloka of Sri Dashavatara Stotra of Sri Jayadeva Goswami, beautifully composed from his Gita Govinda. Vitarasi dekshurane Keshava Dikpati kamaniyam Keshava Vitarasi dekshurane Keshava Dikpati kamaniyam Dashamukamauli balim ramaniyam Dashamukamauli malim ramaniyam Keshavadrita Rama Sharira Keshavadrita Rama Sharira Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshava Jaya Jagadisha Hare. So all glories to Lord Sri Ramachandra. May he bless us. May he fill our hearts with eternal spiritual pleasure. So we'll be back in the next episode with yet another incarnation. The incarnation as Lord Balarama, who is carrying a plow in his hand. So how does he come and who is he? What is the purpose of his incarnation? How does it benefit us to know about Lord Balarama? All this and more coming up in the next episode. You please stay tuned. If you haven't already subscribed to Aradhana YouTube channel, do it right now, right below. And we also have an exclusive WhatsApp group for Once Upon a Time. So I invite you to become a part of that group so you get to know what's happening, what stories we are sharing. I'll leave the link for that WhatsApp group in the description. So using that, you can join the group. If you liked today's story, go ahead and hit the like button and please reminisce, relish the past time. Not necessarily the past time. Today we didn't get into the past times. The glories of Lord Sri Ramachandra. I hope you liked it and I'll see you very soon in the next episode. Take care. Hare Krishna.